morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where sure enough, as I predicted yesterday, there was a need for 2 viewer questions to be included in today's episode. Although they're very good viewer questions, and I think in fact one of them in particular will feature, I think, the most popular story of the day. So, well done, guys, for the questions that you came up with. Although I do have 2 very interesting business news stories that we're going to start out with. They're not particularly sexy, but I think they're interesting and important developments in the movie industry. One of them is going to really spark your interest and perhaps your rage. All right, but the first story is that, we just recently discussed AT&T's acquisition of Time Warner, still pending approval by the government. But then yesterday, as some of you tweeted me, Warner Brothers, which is part of Time Warner obviously, made their own acquisition, and that is Machinima, which of course I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Machinima being a major content creator on YouTube, and also a MCN. They have many channels that are part of their network on YouTube. I thought it was funny. I put in my notes, it's like fish eating each other fish in the ocean, right? They always do that gag where one fish eats another fish and a bigger fish comes along. Well, you kind of have that situation going on in Hollywood right now. Now, the acquisition, it didn't make huge headlines, I think for a couple of reasons. It was a small acquisition, just under $100 million. That's nothing. Because Disney bought Maker Studios, as you might recall, for $500 million. So Machinima was worth 1/5 of what Maker was. Although many felt that Disney overpaid for Maker. Good for Maker. But also, Warner Brothers was already an investor in Machinima. In fact, they've been an investor in Machinima since way back in 2000 when Machinima was started and before even YouTube came on the scene. So it's been a long relationship, and part of that relationship has always had the asterisks that Warner Brothers could at any point decide they wanted to acquire Machinima, and they made that decision. So before we talk about what they want to do with Machinima, I just like to point out that Disney bought Maker Studios, and I think, to be totally honest, hasn't really done anything with it. We all know that Bob Iger is very interested in getting into the digital space. He feels that's how the future will consume entertainment, and now they're looking at Netflix as a potential acquisition. We'll see if that comes true. That's a rumor that we've discussed earlier this week. But with Maker, all they've really done is that they use sometimes their online talent to promote Disney properties, right? I haven't really seen Maker been made a legitimate part of the Disney empire. It's owned by Disney, but it still operates kind of solo. And I don't really think that they've put it more into the mainstream consciousness either, right? I don't think if you were to stop someone who doesn't already go online, they wouldn't know what Maker Studios is. Maybe even some people who do go online. But anyway, what Warner Brothers wants to do with Machinima is they're going to fold it into their recently formed Warner Brothers Digital Networks group, where, interestingly, 2 of their biggest collaborators there are LeBron James and Ellen DeGeneres. But the real reason they want Machinima is because they feel that there is crossover between the Machinima fandom, which is pop culture and video games, and also let's not forget that Warner Brothers got in trouble for paying people on YouTube and influencers to promote their video games. Oh, that was bad. But anyway, and some of you asked me, there's no evidence they've done it with any other divisions, but that was a problem that they got in trouble with. But anyway, they really want to promote their DC content now through Machinima. They feel there's a crossover, and they think this is going to be a way to better interact with their fans, which is interesting because one of the things we've talked about a lot with Warner Brothers and their DCEU is that they don't have the same fan relationship as Marvel does with their fans. Although, I have to say, Marvel fans are incredibly, I talk about hardcore fans, because many of us just love all the movies, right? But like hardcore fans, Marvel actually doesn't, I think, have a particularly close relationship with their fans. You never really see. Kevin Feige's pretty transparent in interviews, but you don't really see a large level of interaction there. So I guess I'm not quite sure what DC is thinking. I think that, we'll talk about Geoff Johns later in this episode, but I think that, just having that transparency and someone that people trust in the position of power, that could go, I think, the longest way. But we'll see what happens. I think it's going to continue just to be business as usual, and you might see a slight slant in Machinima's coverage to cover Warner Brothers properties, particularly their DC brands. But again, we'll see how this develops. But it's an interesting story at the very least. Because, for instance, Warner Brothers has a minority stake in Rotten Tomatoes, and they continue to assail their films over there. Okay, so next up, this is a fascinating story. This is that AMC is considering, now that they're the biggest theater chain in the world, in the U.S., but the world is an even bigger deal. They're now considering flexible pricing. Now, reserved seating has worked very well for them. In Manhattan, for instance, all AMC theaters are now reserved seats. And the reason that AMC likes it so much is not because it might make you not have to wait online. Their feeling is because you feel more relaxed, your seat is set, you have more time to visit the concession stand, right? You don't have to stand online. You don't have to rush to get in your seat. You can go and get a snack. And apparently people are doing that because since they've brought in reserved seating on a more widespread basis, they have seen their concession stand sales increase. And we all know that they were decreasing, and that's why AMC posted huge losses recently. And so that was an emergency situation to fix. So it looks like they have stopped the bleeding. But what is flexible pricing? The article, the Hollywood Reporter said that they were considering it after their acquisition of Europe's Odeon and UCI cinemas, which already uses this. So if you go to an Odeon or UCI cinema, and those of you who are from Europe across the pond, please let us know here in the United States what flexible pricing is like and if you like it. So let me explain. I had to do a lot of research to figure out what this is. So from what I can tell, this is what flexible pricing in movie theater tickets means. That means that they're going by the laws of supply and demand, and they want to sell every seat they can. So obviously, when they know movies are going to sell out, like particularly during their first weekend, like let's say Fantastic Beasts, right? They're going to charge $1 more, right? Oh, that's bad. I can see people getting really angry about that. So they would charge $1 surcharge for the the luxury of seeing a movie as soon as it opens. And also they said sometimes though you might go and see it the opening week, but because you paid a little bit more and they want you to come back and go to the concession stand, they might offer you a free ticket to come back and see the movie the next week or a discounted price to get you to keep coming to the theater. However, for movies that have been playing for a while or perhaps aren't doing that well, they would also have Groupon deals and discounts for those movies. So basically, it's like, I don't know, how embarrassing would it be for a movie, right? If it's like, discount, slashing prices on Queen of Katwe. It would be like, but I mean, anything to get more people to see Queen of Katwe, I guess. I mean, it would certainly be more money, I would think, than what people would pay to stream the film. So anyway, that's what flexible pricing means. If people really want to see a movie, they're going to charge you more for it. And if people aren't really going to see a movie, they're going to try and tempt you with a cheaper ticket. So I still feel they should reward people for loyalty to going to the movies, and I like the AMC Stubs program. I think that that's the best way to do it, and I like reserved seating, and I think they should just improve the movie theater going experience. Like, all this work, and it's like if you just kept people from texting on their phone during the movie, I think it would make a really big deal. Like, if your seats were clean, that would make a really big deal. If the bathroom was usable, that would make a really big deal. But we'll see. Okay, so I think that's really interesting. All right, I also think the prime theaters, like Dolby's theaters and the IMAX theater, I think that's probably the wave of the future when it comes to going to a theater experience. All right, so those are the two stories of the day. Now let's go to the two viewer questions. Now this is the big one I think is going to really interest a lot of you, and this is from Adow Souza. Great question, Adow. So Adow says, "Hello, Grace. I have a question. I got very worried with the choice that made at Warner Brothers of who was going to script the new Harley/Birds of Prey movie. And it's Christina Hodson that we've been talking about for the past few days. So Adow says, I mean, it makes no sense. Black Canary is one of the first female superheroes, and Harley is very important for DC now. Why choose an untested outsider to comics to such an important property? I mean, do you think it means that Geoff Johns is not actually pulling the strings? That he may be there more to appease fans while Warner Brothers keeps doing business as usual? If that is the case, I would think that would be a wasted opportunity that DC cannot afford." So, fascinating question here. And I think this boils down to Adow asking, how much power does Geoff Johns really have? And I think that's a really good question. And I think we have to remember that while we are like, oh, is this the new Kevin Feige? He doesn't have Kevin Feige's experience, track record in the movie business, or his job, his actual, he doesn't have the consolidated power that Kevin Feige has, because he's co-head of the DCEU with John Berg, who's a Hollywood producer. So Geoff Johns does not have complete control, even officially. So first, let me just reiterate about Christina Hodson, for those of you who did not see that story the other day about who's scripting the Harley Quinn movie. So Christina Hodson is a former entertainment executive in development who decided she wanted to be a screenwriter. So she started writing screenplays. She used her connections, and she had 3 movies on the blacklist. One was just released, though, Shut In, which got a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes and was a horrible box office disaster. However, she's part of the brain trust for the new Transformers cinematic universe, and her Bumblebee script has gotten everyone very excited in Hollywood. A lot of buzz around it. Bumblebee script has buzz? So I think that it's important to remember the way Hollywood works, and that because she has so much buzz, Hollywood's very excited about her, and suddenly she became a hot commodity. And kudos to her representation, her agent and/or manager, who were like, hey, Warner Brothers, look at the buzz that our client has for her Bumblebee script. And she's a woman. That's the thing now. Hire a woman to write a movie about a woman. I think this is going to really bite Hollywood in the butt if they're not careful. And so they hired her. And I think that Hollywood does this all the time. Somebody has buzz, and they hire someone who's untested and/or unproven. Even to Hollywood. I mean, Christina Hodson's not just new to comics. She's new to the Hollywood screenwriting game and doesn't have a good track record at all. You know, I mean, the Bumblebee script has buzz, but how many times has a script had buzz, but then totally failed when it got to the multiplex? You know, I mean, Bumblebee hasn't come out. Audiences haven't seen it. I mean, just because some studio executives are excited about it doesn't mean that it's actually as good as they think it is. I mean, maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. I wouldn't take that as gospel. Now, as for Geoff Johns, I can see why Hollywood wouldn't totally trust him, right? I mean, he was behind the Green Lantern movie. He was involved in that. And while his CW shows that he works with are successful, Greg Berlanti has tried to make some movies, and that hasn't worked out too well, who Geoff Johns works with there. And I think that everybody would agree that as much as you might enjoy the CW shows, they're not anywhere near the quality that a movie needs to be, right? And I know that many people like to say, oh, well, Geoff Johns got his start with Richard Donner as his assistant, okay? That was a long time ago, and Geoff Johns has not worked in the entertainment and in the movie business well, actually, quite frankly, ever. And the only experience that he does have recently was with that Green Lantern movie. Now, sure, it might not be his fault, but he was still part of that crew. So I think that Geoff Johns is there to consult as someone who is a DC Comics insider, but I don't think that he has, he's going to have to earn the Warner Brothers movie division's trust, and that makes total sense. And so I think that's why, maybe we're in a transition period. We'll see what happens, but I do think that the hiring of Christina Hodson for Birds of Prey just really goes to show, how political the system is, and that yes, Hollywood, and not just Warner Brothers, but all Hollywood, does make mistakes, and sometimes they seem very obvious, but that's the way the system works. You hear a lot about drain the swamp in politics right now, and I think there's to some degree a bit of a swamp in Hollywood. And I don't know how that's ever going to get fixed. It's just a difficult political situation. But good movies do get through. Let's hope that some of them have the DC brand on them. I like Batman v Superman, but many did not. All right, so that's my answer to your question today. I think Geoff Johns, he never had a lot of control. He might someday, but he has to earn it, although it might be difficult in this environment. And that's why Christina Hodson was likely hired. And maybe she will turn in a great Harley Quinn script. We don't know. Although I think the whole idea of the Harley Quinn movie is not great. And if it succeeds, it will be just because it's like a cheesecake pinup movie, then maybe a good movie, right? Because how can that succeed, but Ghostbusters is not good, right? And also Sucker Punch, is it just going to be Sucker Punch, basically? And I would also say to you that all-female comics are a tough sell themselves. Like, remember the all-female X-Men comic that came out a few years ago? It was horrible. Okay, so the final story of the day, the final viewer question comes from Berta S. Steve. And so I really liked Berta's question. So Berta says, great week to ask questions, you say. Way to take advantage of an opportunity, Berta. I like your gumption. So Berta says, I'm going to try this again then. Hey, Grace. My name is Berta, and I'm a viewer from Barcelona. Hello. I work as an entertainment lawyer here in Spain. Awesome. But I studied in LA, and I fell in love with the city and the showbiz culture. My goal is to make the jump from entertainment law practice to producing films and TV shows, but I'm not sure how to proceed. Also, I don't know if I'd have more opportunities staying here in Spain, since the entertainment market in Hollywood is pretty much saturated. You'd really be helping me a lot if you gave me some advice. I'm super lost. Thank you. I'm honored that you came to me, Berta. It is indeed a difficult situation. And also, I have to be honest, I don't know the film industry particularly well in Spain or what's going on over there. Although, of course, Pedro Almodovar, you do have a lot of great filmmakers coming out of Spain. So There are two ways that you could go about this. One, you could try to get a job as an entertainment lawyer at a law firm, or production companies and studios hire their own lawyers in-house as well. So you could try to make the jump to Los Angeles as a lawyer, as an entertainment lawyer, especially if you went to school in LA. Perhaps you could get a job that way. And then eventually you could see if you could transition from the legal side to the producing side. That's tough to do. Hollywood likes people in their compartments, especially if they're doing well. They're like, everything's great with you and your job that you're currently in. Why should we move you? So, you have to really make aggressive moves yourself. So what I'm going to describe to you is something you can either try and do right now in Spain, or you can eventually do in Los Angeles after working for a few years as an entertainment lawyer there. So what you can do is what I would advise you to do is to make friends with somebody who is already a producer, somebody who is a solid producer. I mean, I would assume you have some connections because you are an entertainment lawyer. So I would try and find someone who is a good producer, or a director if you want to do it yourself. But basically, you're going to want to find a way to make a movie, right? And you're going to want to have a success factor baked in. And that would either be teaming up with a producer who can help show you the ropes and add some credibility to you, or you can find a filmmaker that you think is good. Maybe he's already made one film, because again, you're an entertainment lawyer, so I'm assuming you know some people, and you could say, okay, you want to make your movie? I will help raise the money, and I will become your producer and help you out. Find someone who needs someone to help produce their film. Now, if you make this in Spain, I think that you can then take it to the festival circuit, and if it does well on the festival circuit, then you're a producer. Congratulations, I think that it's important to point out the track record is what's really important here. You have to have a track record, and then you can jump to the United States. You've produced a movie in Spain, it's done the festival circuit, you have evidence that you can produce something. Or you can go to Los Angeles, again, be an entertainment lawyer here for a couple of years, and then try and see if, don't expect anyone to say, do you want to be a producer? Okay, you can be a producer. That's not going to happen, especially because you're not in school anymore and you already have a career and it's in a different category. So what you're going to need to do in any case is you're going to have to be proactive. And so you're going to, again, have to team up with a producer and someone who needs help, because they might not be looking for another producer. So you need to find someone who needs the help, wants to start a production company with someone else, and you have to be upfront about it and say, look, my goal is to eventually become a producer. And so keep that in mind. Or be a producer yourself on someone else's film. It's difficult. I certainly wouldn't quit your entertainment lawyer job while you're trying to make this transition. And that's a great job. And again, utilize the connections that you've made there. Also, you could try and take advantage, now that I'm thinking about it, about some of the programs like the Sundance Lab, etc. Look into Christina Hodson and Meg LaFave. They were production executives, so they were already in the creative side of it. So it's not quite the same thing, but take a look at how they were able to jump into it. See if you can maybe make your connections to maybe get your film into like the Sundance Lab, or maybe the Spanish equivalent, whatever the film programs are over there. Again, work those connections. Start telling people I want to be a producer. Can I help you? Can I be a producer on this? But be careful about it. You don't want people to see you coming and be like, that's the person who wants to be a producer, and they keep asking. Just, very politely float it out there and just say, even just some advice that you could give me. Although be careful, you don't want to have anybody at work think that you don't enjoy the job that you currently have and run into problems there. But it's a tricky transition. I can see why you're nervous about it, but I would just tread cautiously, proactively, and also be very realistic. Always remember, there's no job fairy. No one's going to want to go around and be like, boop, there you go. You're going to have to talk them into it and make them see what's in it for them to help you achieve your goal. So good luck. It's very hard to make career transitions, but I'm rooting for you, Berta. And again, you're off to a good start because you're already in the business and you're already an entertainment lawyer and you've already gone to school in LA. So that's good. You're in a better position than many. So good luck, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please write down below, I think, of today's 2 stories, the 2 viewer questions from Adao and Berta. Any advice that you have for Berta would be awesome. Anyone from Spain who maybe is more familiar with the Spanish film industry than I am. And then let me know what you'd like to see covered on Monday and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.